Good evening. So, talking about Battlefield today and a non-live commentary. Surprisingly, I was going to do a live commentary, and then I decided that I just wanted to focus on talking and what I actually want to talk about. So, I was thinking 2042. I haven't played it yet. I mean, I played the game, but anyway. The background footage you're seeing is recorded after this commentary, I'll say that. So I was thinking of the new season of Battlefield 2042, and I am sick, so that's why my voice sounds weird. I was thinking about I think it's season 7, and I had played it initially like a day or two after it had just released. I don't know if it's season 7, could be whatever, but the newest season, I played it initially after it released, and I played the new map, and it's kind of mediocre, to be honest. Like, I was thinking about playing the game now. That's why I wanted to record this little commentary. Because Battlefield just still seems unenjoyable. Like, it's weird that the thought of the game seems unenjoyable. And it's not that I don't want to play the game. Like, I do want to play 2042. But the amount of time that I know I'm going to play it for is probably going to be substantially small for the most part. Just because there's so little to do. Like, obviously, if you haven't played the game a lot or just bought 2042, you have, at least 100 hours of playtime easily. You can get out of it without it getting super boring. And don't get me wrong, it's not like you're going to be able to play it for like 8 hours straight in a day. You could, if you haven't played a Battlefield game in a while, and you're just new to 2042, it's possible, I guess. To me, you can't even play 8 hours straight. Like, you gotta take a break in between because it just is boring, especially once you unlock all of the weapons. There is one mastery skin in air quotations. It's not really a mastery skin, but there's 2 skins that you can unlock for every weapon. I think the first skin is like carbon fiber or something weird like that. It's a blue looking skin, and you only need like 20 kills per weapon, or 30 or whatever. You don't really need that many kills to unlock it, and it's an okay looking skin. And then the better looking skin, I think if I remember correctly, it's called the tier 1 skin, and you go from needing 20 kills to like 1,000 plus for each weapon. Like, I think the minimum amount of kills is 500, and that might be for like snipers or something stupid like that. Like, I genuinely think it's like 1,000 to 1,500 average to unlock that skin, which is like using a single weapon for 1,000 kills isn't impossible, but it's just crazy how that's the gap you have. Like, you have 2 skins in the game. It's a little bit upsetting to an extent. Because I've talked about this before in my previous Battlefield video that I had made, talking about, why 2042 is boring or sucks or whatever. And it's because there's nothing to do in the game. And it's not even like you have to have something to do in Battlefield, because when I jump on Battlefield, any of them, and play, I'm not joining the game I'm not treating it like it's Call of Duty, I guess you could say. I'm treating it like it's Battlefield. I don't jump in the game and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try to get gold for this weapon. There isn't really a camo grind like that. I don't really, yes, there's challenges and camos in the game, but that's not really something that I care about. When I play Battlefield, I play it for the Battlefield experience, to be completely honest with you. I jump on the game and it's very cinematic, compared to Call of Duty. It's a very cinematic game. The way the gameplay feels, the way the game feels. Battlefield 4 feels floaty, very sandboxy. And it's not a bad game. I'm not saying that's bad. It's just, the way the character moves feels a bit more floaty and weightless compared to, Battlefield 5, I should say, or Battlefield 1. And Battlefield 1 feels, somewhat different, more fine-tuned than Battlefield 4 gameplay, or just how the weapons feel and the character moves. And then Battlefield 5 feels like Battlefield 1, except they made it slightly more arcadey, which I'm okay with. I actually think Battlefield 5, how the weapons and character feel, is like peak Battlefield gameplay to me, like weapon-wise and stuff. Now, some people might disagree, and that's understandable. I can completely see where you're coming from. To me, I think Battlefield 1 gameplay is just more fine-tuned, better version of Battlefield 4, where they actually are like, okay, this is how we want our game to feel, and Battlefield 5 is that, just slightly more arcadey, which I'm okay with. Obviously, everybody has their preferences. But then we have 2042, which almost doesn't even feel like a Battlefield game. It feels more like classic old school Call of Duty, like think Black Ops 2, Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 2, with how the character feels. I think that's not bad necessarily, but you have this dilemma or problem in the game where you have this non-Battlefield feel, because I was hard to put my finger on. And when I made my previous Battlefield video, that's what I talked about and how I actually kind of disliked the Call of Duty feel. Initially, when I first played Battlefield, or Battlefield 2042, I actually enjoyed how it felt. I liked how it felt like classic Call of Duty, because I personally don't like how newer Call of Duty games play. You know, it's everybody likes their own preferences, but I just don't like how they feel and stuff. Plus, the hit scan is way faster. Like the time to, I don't want to say time to kill is slower, but the hit scan, like, there's not as much travel between shooting a sniper, you know, from long range and hitting somebody. It's more, the bullet time is more quicker, akin to old school Call of Duty, and I'm actually kind of okay with that. It's not, you know, instant, like, it's not instant hit scan type deal. Like, there still is some projectile length to some weapons if you're shooting somebody far enough away, obviously. But the game still feels relatively okay, and I don't hate it. The problem is that the rest of the game itself is lacking, to say the least, and mediocre at, I don't want to say at best, but in general, nowadays, I would say it's mediocre. The game isn't really broken. They've had plenty of time to fix the game since its release. Obviously, its release was, you know, pretty shoddy. But minus that, the game is in a working state, and I think it's a relatively good Battlefield game. Could be, you know, one of the better Battlefield games, not one of the worst Battlefield games, if they actually had something for you to do in the game. You see, they incorporated this, you know, gameplay that feels less like Battlefield and more like a generic arcade shooter. To be honest with you, that's how Call of Duty kind of is, like just a generic arcade shooter. And then they threw it in Battlefield, but they never added anything else. Like, there's no camo grind or anything. Like, you would expect there to be a camo grind with the way it is, because instead of playing Battlefield for the gameplay, you know, how the character feels and how it was just, you know, the cinematicness of it, the destruction of the environment, the way the weapons worked, how there was actual, like, bullet drop, and if you were like shooting with a sniper, it was like, okay, you have to line it up correctly. It wasn't just instant hit scan, you know, there was actually some merit to it. You know, it felt unique. It felt like Battlefield. It didn't really feel like any other game, to be honest. And now that you have 2042, where it kind of feels like Call of Duty in a way, or a generic arcadey shooter, you have this problem where you're not, I don't want to say the entire point, but it feels not like Battlefield, at least at its core. You know, like the way the actual character and guns feel, it doesn't really feel like Battlefield. It feels like 10% Battlefield, 90% generic arcade shooter. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you had the environment, take the maps, for example, there's not really a whole lot of destruction. The maps are honestly pretty shit. The maps aren't that good. It's not like the maps are necessarily bad. I actually don't necessarily hate any of the maps. They're just kind of boring, and there's not really a lot going on. There's like one main area of a map, and then that's kind of it. And even the 128 player and the modes, like the main modes are Conquest 128, Conquest 64, 2 versus 32, and then you have Breakthrough, just 64 player, which kind of sucks because, one, the entire point of this game, or I feel like when I remember hearing about 2042 and before it released, the big thing was, oh, 128 player games, and now they like completely just walked away from that. I don't know why Breakthrough 128 doesn't exist anymore, because it did previously, but they got rid of it. Kind of sucks, because that was like the best, I don't want to say it was the best mode, but 128 was just more fun. The maps feel way too large to be played with 64 players. Now, it's not like you can't play them, and you could still have an enjoyable match, like depending on the map you get, but a lot of the maps just don't work on 128 player, especially the maps that released when the game released, like the base maps, because those maps were kind of made for 128, and there's not a smaller version that's made for 64 players. Now, one mode that is, I think, the best mode in the game is Chaos or Rush 128 player. They basically have Rush XL, or sometimes it's called Chaos Rush XL or whatever. It's a 128 player Rush, and this is by far the best mode in the game, hands down, 100%. I wasn't really a fan of Conquest to begin with, and in this game, it's not even that good. Rush 128 player is so much fun. You have this giant map. Everybody's trying to go for this objective. There's not like too many vehicles on the map. You don't have to run too far. Like, it's actually a lot of fun. And for some reason, they only have the mode, like, it's a rotation mode. So it's only in the game like 1 week out of the month, if that. And that sucks, to be honest. Like, why would you have your best mode in a rotation? The fact that Rush isn't on the home screen as a staple mode is kind of upsetting. because then they have Portal. And the problem with that is if you try to find a Rush XL Portal, there's not really any that are good, or people might not just be playing it. And Portal was good in the beginning, but now it's kind of mediocre. Like, a lot of the fun that I had when the game first launched was they had Battlefield World Tour, which I think they still have Battlefield World Tour sometimes. And what happens is it will play, like, if it's a they'll rotate through maps. So if it's a Battlefield 3 map, you could only have Battlefield 3 loadouts and kits. It's kind of cool. And then if it's 1942 map, you'll only have 1942 weapons and stuff. I bought the game a week before it's released, the $100 edition, refunded it because it was trash, and then like a month or two later, it was half off on the Epic Games Store. So that's what happened. And then that honestly, I had a lot of fun with that. And then that brings me to segue into this next part, the weapons, the amount of weapons in the game. Battlefield 2042 has a few weapons. You know, they add 2 to 3 with every, season. The problem is that they have, in air quotations, every other Battlefield in one, but the problem is it's not every other Battlefield. They have Battlefield 3 weapons. The problem is it's not every Battlefield 3 weapon that was in Battlefield 3. It's a small percentage. Same thing with 1942. It's only a small percentage of weapons for some reason. Same thing with Battlefield 2. There's not Battlefield 3 weapons. There's no Battlefield 4 weapons. There's no Battlefield 1. There's no Battlefield 5, which is weird. It's every Battlefield game in one, yet it's only like 3 other Battlefield games. But it just kind of upsets me that they did, like, why not just add every Battlefield weapon from that respective game? Like, why not add every Battlefield 3 weapon? Another problem that I have is you can't use all of the Battlefield weapons in 2042. So say, to explain it, say you join a breakdown match. It's just normal Battlefield 2042, not World Tour. You join a breakthrough match, or Rush or Conquest. You have access to your Battlefield 2042 weapons that are in the base game. That makes sense. The problem is, after playing the game for so long, I kind of wish they added it so you can use every other Battlefield weapon also. But at the same time, 2042 takes place in the future, and all the other Battlefield games take place before 2042, so, like, it's not like it would be historically wrong to have you be able to use, like, a Battlefield 1942 weapon. And it also would just add for more challenges for weapons to unlock. You could unlock those weapons. It'll just be a lot of fun. There are some weapons, or I think some of the Battlefield 3 weapons you can use, I'm pretty sure. I think actually the Battlefield 3 weapons are, I think, usable, or at least some of them are, because I know the Gold Magnum Sniper is usable because I have it unlocked. And I think some of the Battlefield 2 Bad Company or Battlefield 2 weapons are usable. I could be completely wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure a couple of them are. Yet none of the 1942 ones are. Like, I would love to use a Car 98 or something like that, but, I guess I can, or an M1 Garand. I always call it Grand. I think it's pronounced Garand, right? I don't know. But I think that would be really cool. And instead, they kind of didn't do that. Another thing that they missed out on was, why didn't they just add all of the Battlefield games? Like, 1942 is cool, but why didn't they just do Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1, and, like, 5, or, something weird like that? Like, then you could have had all of the weapons. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, you could have done Battlefield, 2, or Battlefield Bad Company 2. Battlefield 2 Bad Company, dear God, I'm so sorry. Battlefield 4, and then you could have had, Battlefield 1 or 5, and then you would have all your eras covered, if that makes sense. And then you could have, because those are, like, the most popular Battlefield games, so you could have really had the excuse of, oh, you don't have to go back and play those Battlefield games. It's the same thing with the maps, too, to be honest. Like, there's, like, one or two 1942 maps. There's, like, 3, not even, Battlefield 3 maps. I forget what the other Battlefield game was. Battlefield 2, there's, like, 1 map, not even, like, I don't even know. Or I don't even want to say it's weird. It's kind of cool, where it's like, oh, here's Portal, and you have access to all of the other Battlefields, yet it's only a portion of those Battlefields. It's like a demo of those other Battlefields. Like, they didn't fully commit to it. Now that I think about it, I was thinking about that last time I played the game, and I was like, this is so weird. Like, why didn't they fully commit to it? Because I was thinking about the trailers and stuff, like, oh, that's so cool. You never need to play another Battlefield game again. You just have access to everything. You open the game, and it's like 25% of the weapons from Battlefield 1942 are, Battlefield 2 in here, and it's like, there's like 2 maps. Like, what is going on, Like, the idea was there, but it was executed poorly, I feel like. It's still extremely weird to me. I don't know. 2042 is in a weird place. And plus, I'm not a vehicle person. I don't really use vehicles a lot, but even like not even vehicles, like just the maps play weird. They don't feel like Battlefield maps. It's just everything feels bleh. There's not, and on top of that, there's not a lot to do. Once you unlock all the weapons, yeah, you can use a single weapon and try to unlock the tier 1 skin, but that's all you have going for you, because like I said, part to me that I enjoyed about Battlefield was the gameplay and the cinematics of the match, how the characters felt. It felt like Battlefield, and how you had to, kind of line up your shot, like, okay, if somebody is really far away and they're running, you have to kind of line it up in front of them like you would an actual, sniper, slightly, realistic. It wasn't like instant hit scan like Call of Duty. And now they've gone down the arcadey path where it's like an instant hit scan majority of the time. Like any sniper at any range, as long as you're aiming on the person and you shoot while your crosshairs on them, it's going to hit. You don't have to like lead your shot. They changed how the gameplay felt, shooting wise and character wise. And then they also changed the maps itself. So it's like, now it doesn't even feel like Battlefield. Like, it feels like Battlefield, and I said this in my last Battlefield video, it feels like a shell of itself. Like, it feels like the idea of Battlefield was there. But the game itself isn't Battlefield. Like, it feels like a generic arcade shooter with the name Battlefield on top of it. The other kind of thing they did was the operator, the specialists. Originally, they didn't have, medic and all of that, an engineer, and then they changed that, like halfway through its life cycle. They added back engineer and like the 4 specialist slots, which I'll get into, but initially it was just like the heroes or the specialist or whatever, and everybody was different. And in the beginning, majority of the characters weren't used, so I used this guy called Angel, I think his name is, or whatever. He has the ability to drop down a supply kit where you can completely change your loadout. He can give himself ammo, give his teammates ammo, and then if you wanted to, you can put on a health pack, and you literally basically had access to everything. You had a health pack, you had ammo, you were set. And the problem was, because there was no categories, you could just put a sniper on him or whatever and it would work. But they changed that, so now there's like engineer and sniper and stuff. They changed it so the specialist characters were locked to a respective class, I guess you could say. So if you chose the engineer class, you only had access to these operators. The problem is, instead of having, like in older Battlefield games, any Battlefield game previously, instead of having snipers locked to the sniper class, you can now have any weapon on any character still. So it's like, oh, I could only use Angel if I select medic or engineer or whatever he is. I think he's under medic. Like, if I could only select Angel if I select the support class. But it doesn't matter because you can put on any weapon you want. So it's not like you're choosing the class because of the weapon. Back in other Battlefields, it was like, oh, if you want to use a specific weapon type, you have to use a specific class a lot of the time. Or it's not like that. Now it's just an extra layer for some reason, but it's like a useless layer. So it's like, oh, to play Angel, you have to play support, but you still have access to all of the same weapons. So like nothing's really changed. Or say you want to play a different specialist, and that's specialist is locked to the engineer class, you could do that, but like none of the weapons are locked. Like, it's very weird. Like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. Like, it kind of worked out better. I forget what they changed. Like, it feels like they didn't really change a lot, but minded, I guess, to an extent, because I will use like engineer class sometimes, because I think they have it so you can own like the specific kits to an extent. So like, you can't have a repair tool if you're playing as Angel, I think. So they changed that aspect of it, which then actually did allow me, or at least how I played, I actually ended up switching characters more often, and I kind of enjoy it now, because instead of just instant locking Angel, if I do want to use, say I want the Javelin or the guided missile launcher, you have to play an engineer or assault or whatever, and then instead of just still instant locking Angel, or whatever the character's name is, I have to play a different class. Like, I forget what they did initially, but I do use a different character more often than I did when the game first released. So I guess that kind of helped, but I also think it's incredibly stupid how they added back the 4 class selection thing, yet they didn't lock the weapons to it. That's what made me switch classes and play like medic. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm actually a medic now, and helping my team because I want access to this subclass of weapon. I don't fully hate this idea of not having weapons locked to specific classes. Like, I think it's stupid, and to an extent I hate it, but I don't. Like, it's nice to be able to play as a support class, like a medic class that it focuses on helping teammates and being a support character while also being able to use a sniper or an LMG or an SMG or whatever instead of just maybe one or two classes, weapon genres, you know, like say it's only ARs and SMGs or something like that. At the same time, it's kind of stupid because if you're going to have categories of classes, like if you're going to have a recon class where it's designed around long range kills, which would be sniping, why don't you just have it locked to snipers? Like, I like being able to use a sniper on any class, but at the same time, it's also stupid because why even it's like, oh, well, like the recon class, you can have, it's built for long range and it has a respawn beacon and all of this, yet you can use like an SMG on it. Like, I don't know, it's very weird. It's iffy. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm a huge sniper player, so whenever I want to play as the sniper class, I have access to like only snipers. So it's like, okay, well, if I want access to ARs, I have to choose a different class, which then forces me to use a different operator, and I have a completely different tool set now. So now I have, you know, like a rocket launcher, or I have, if you're playing engineer, you have the repair kit for vehicles. So it would kind of force you to play a different play style because you can't just pick engineer, have a repair tool and a sniper. That would be, you know, that's kind of dumb. Like that, it doesn't really work because then you could have these broken classes where you still have a majority of the specialists that I feel like aren't used, or at least I don't use 99% of them, because why use this character when I can have health and ammo on a sniper class, along with having a claymore, because on top of that, the grenades are like, you know, you could use whatever, and it's just so weird. Like, it doesn't, it's not that it doesn't balance well, feels not right. Like, they really messed it up. And I was all for not, initially when the game first released, I was all for not having, you know, those 4 segregated classes where there were locked to specific weapons. But after playing a lot more of 2042, I do miss that. Like, I realized, damn, that like is what made Battlefield. Like, it actually, if I wanted to use a different main weapon class, you know, if I wanted to use ARs, I had to play Assault. If I wanted to use snipers, I was locked to snipers and I had to play this character who only had this type of gear set to the character. I couldn't just pick a sniper and then have, you know, rocket launcher and all this crazy, you know, other stuff. Like, I was forced to pick a specific set of items. Another thing that I want to bring up while listening back to this is not only was it better for the game because it forced balance almost. Take Team Fortress 2. Weird that I'm bringing this up, but take Team Fortress 2. You have heavy, you have medic, you have sniper, you have all of these classes where in a 12v12 situation, you're going to need at least one of them. If you need a medic on your team, you're going to know. It's like, okay, well, we need a medic. Like, everybody's dying too quick. We need an Uber charge for this right now. So, in say Battlefield 1, 4, or 5, it's like if your team was dying and nobody was getting revives, like, okay, like we could use a medic here. We could use a medic because, you know, no, we're not getting enough revives and we're going to lose this point or whatever. And it forced you to switch class, and it's like, okay, well, we need a sniper here. The snipers are killing us. So you're like, you have this kind of balance going on where you had to, if you wanted to help your team to the fullest extent, choose specific classes almost. You had to balance it out. Whereas now in 2042, you see the same characters running around. It's just like Angel. Like, half the lobby is just Angel because he can do everything. He can revive all of his teammates, and he can give ammo and bring down supply kits. And yeah, like you'll see other characters used sometimes, but like he is, to me, I feel like he's the most picked. You see him a lot because he literally can do everything. He can heal his own teammates, and I feel like that's where they messed up to an extent. Because initially when the game first released, you could just revive anybody on your team, as far as I know. They did change it where you have to be playing a support class to be able to revive anybody that's not in your squad. But I feel like that made the picks worse now. It's like, okay, well, you might as well pick Angel on support because he has every ability you need and he can revive everybody on the team. Like, being able to revive everybody on the team is so useful. And on top of that, not having the weapons locked to specific classes, like not having snipers locked to recon, means if somebody wants to snipe, they don't have to switch off of medic to snipe now. It's like, okay, I could just put a sniper on as Angel or an LMG. So having these weapons locked to every class, or or having them open to every class, just makes it so much easier for anybody to just pick the, I don't want to say most broken, but the best specialist to pick, you know, for the situation. Like, Angel is going to be good in any situation because he can quickly revive his teammates. He can revive everybody on his team. He can call down a loadout kit. He can heal his team. He can drop a health pack in all of this. He can drop an ammo pack. He can give ammo to himself. There's no point in playing any other character because meh. Like, yeah, you'll see other specialists picked, but like a lot of the time it's going to be dominated by like one or two specific characters. At least that's how I see. And I'm saying that because the background gameplay of one of my matches, my entire squad was literally Angel. So there's that. But yeah, whereas 2042 is like, you could just do whatever you want. Just anybody has anything. Here you go. It's weird. Like it's not unbalanced having every weapon class unlocked for, you could use ARs through snipers on anybody. It's honestly not that unbalanced. I think it's perfectly balanced and it works fine. It's just very weird, and I feel like it changes the replayability to an extent because it forces you to never need to switch your specialist character, if that makes sense. Like, they added all these characters with all these, in air quotations, cool abilities, yet 99% of them I'm not ever using because I don't have to, and there's no reason for me to. Every so often, I might switch off of the support class to engineer so I can have access to a specific rocket launcher or something, but I only ever use a specific specialist that I like. It's like, okay, well, in the engineer class, I don't mind the specialist, so I use him. Other than that, it's like I use 3 different specialists out of the 9, like 10 or whatever they have. Like, they could have made it a lot better, and I feel like that's where they fall flat also. I feel like I'm maybe repeating the same stuff I said in my previous Battlefield video, but I just wanted to talk about 2042 and stuff because it's very odd. Another thing that I want to point out that I don't know if I've put in a video, but I have talked about, and I want to put it on record, is that probably would have been a lot easier for them to just go back to any other previous Battlefield game and make it crossplay. They could have went back to Battlefield 4 and just made it crossplay. They could have just went back to Battlefield 1 or 5 and just added crossplay to the game, instead of creating a completely new game. Like, there really isn't any reason for them to create a completely new Battlefield game when they could have just made any of their previous Battlefield titles crossplay. Obviously, they would have... I don't know if Battlefield 1 is even on next gen or if Battlefield 4 is, so obviously they would have to make it available for next gen, which shouldn't be that hard. You literally just allow the game... You just change the FPS cap on the game and unlock some of the graphical settings, add a performance mode. That's all you have to do for Battlefield, like all the Battlefield games, and you just put them on next gen. And it's like, you already have a perfect game made. Like, Battlefield 4 is perfectly fine. Everybody likes it. Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5, everybody likes those games. All you have to do is just add crossplay and put them on next gen. It's not like there's nothing crazy you have to do. And they still didn't. Like, you could have even just remade those games. Like, you generally could have just remade Battlefield 4. Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5, remaster them. You don't even have to remake them. And instead, they went this new route, and they just fell flat everywhere. Like, this is one of those situations where it would have been cheaper and a million times better if they just added crossplay to any of the previous Battlefield titles. That's something that I've always thought about, especially as of recently, because this being the only crossplay game is upsetting. I have 2 friends who I like playing games with, and one of them is on Xbox, the other one's on PlayStation. The one friend who's on PlayStation, me and him bought the game a week early. If you bought the $100 edition or whatever, the special edition of 2042, you got to play it a week early. We did that. Literally was like broken on controller. Like, the aiming on controller apparently was broken for him, so he refunded it because the game was basically unplayable. And he refuses to buy 2042. It's $10, and he still refuses to buy it, sadly. So he won't even buy the game anymore. And then my other friend on Xbox, me and him have played it together, but I've told him so many times that, like, we'll be playing it, and it just gets boring, to be honest. Like, it's just kind of boring after 2 hours, which is upsetting because it's like, I would love to play Battlefield. Like, I've told him multiple times, and even he has said, like, I would love to play Battlefield 1 or 5 with him. And I have, like, an Xbox One, like the first Xbox One, but I don't want to, I don't want to have to play my old, downgraded console just to play Battlefield 1 or 5 with him when I have a PC that's a million times better, that console. Like, that's so stupid. Like, if they just... As I've said it so many times to him, I'm just like, man, I just wish... Like, of course, all of the Battlefield games have to be crossplay. This has to be the worst one. Like, what are the odds? Like, I feel like that's like... Same thing with Call of Duty. Like, it's like, yeah, Black Ops 2 was so good. Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare. And it's like, the first crossplay Call of Duty game is 2019. And it's like, it's a super sweaty sweat fest. SBMM is awful. It's like, you can't do good with that. Like, you do good one lobby, and then you're forced to get shit on the next 5 or play your hardest. And it's like, then Cold War was actually fun. I enjoyed it. But then you have Vanguard, and it's like flop. Like Modern Warfare 2, kind of a flop. And then you have Modern Warfare 3, which is just DLC for Modern Warfare 2, except it's separate and it costs $70. Why do all of these games that are crossplay have to be shit? Like, I wish I didn't buy it. It's one of my 3 regrets in life is buying Kill the Justice League. I watched Penguin Zero, Moist Critical, whatever you want to call him. I watched him play it. He was saying it wasn't good. Everybody else was saying it wasn't good. I didn't plan on buying it. It was like on sale on this other website for like $55. I was like, you know what, I'll buy it. I kind of want to play it. And I played it for a couple hours and then I stopped and I wish I never bought it, genuinely. I got it on sale and I still wish I never got it. And of course that has to be crossplay. Like all of these horrible games are crossplay. Like Battlefield Front 2 and 1. Like Battlefront 2, I wish that game was crossplay. Star Wars Battlefront 2, but it's not. Like that'd be a great crossplay game, but nah, no, it's not. There's like it's so sad that we are in the dark ages of gaming, and of course, all of these newer games from like these big name titles, like big name studio titles, are always shit. They're crossplay, but they're shit. Like Call of Duty to an extent. You know, a lot of these games are like bleh, like it's kind of shit. You know, Battlefield 2042, shit. Kill the Justice League, shit. And it's like, yet all of these same companies that have previous titles that are amazing, but they're not crossplay. And it's just, it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting. Anyway, I've been talking for way longer than I expected. I'm going to end it here. Blah, blah, blah. Have a good day, you dudes. I'll see you in the next one.